See, people don't appreciate the work that goes into having a podcast. They don't understand how hard it is to come up with something new every week to focus on a niche. And that's why so many people don't have niche oriented podcasts. They just want to talk about whatever they want to talk about because it's so hard to stay within a niche each and every week.
You know what we should do instead?
What?
We should launch a podcast that talks about random things, and we should call it Readily Random.
We probably shouldn't do that, but it was fun. I'm not going to lie. I met a lot of cool people. Hey, by the way, speaking of cool people, what's happening, everybody? I'm Larry Roberts.
And I'm Sarah Lucy, and this is Brandon, your comprehensive guide to creative branding. That was super SNL.
That was fairly SNL.
That
Yeah.
was so SNL.
Very SNL-ish. I like it, though. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on. Continue.
And on this episode of the podcast, we're not going to talk about SNL. We're going to talk about AI and how you can AI-proof your brand.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that AI, or artificial intelligence, is really, it's just taking over everything that we're doing. It's in every facet of life. We see it everywhere. It's in all the headlines. It's in all the news stories. Even yours truly is on TV on a regular basis talking about this AI stuff. So it's here. And it can still be, even though, I think ChatGPT dropped on the scene November of 2022. But even in this 18-ish months, it's been overwhelming to see how it's transformed literally everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I was one of the late adopters, as you are well aware. But all the new stuff that's been coming out lately has been really cool. And I know there's different ways that you can play with ChatGPT and different other AIs available that people can use specifically for growing their brand or promoting their brand or AI proofing their brand, as you would say.
Yeah, as you know, AI Proof has kind of become kind of a sub-brand, I guess, of mine, where I do these talks and they're all AI proofing whatever niche it happens to be. I've done an AI proof business broker talk. I've done an AI proof content creator talk. I've done AI proof education talks. And I continue to develop these talks that are all about AI proofing these various industries. And it can be very scary when we sit back and think about whatever we're doing and what our niche may be and what the impact of AI could have on it going forward. So I think that's really what inspired me to start going down this AI proof road, because we see all these podcasts and all these YouTube channels and all these AI experts that are coming out on the scene. But everybody that I'm seeing is talking about how to use AI, not so much talking about how to integrate AI and how we make sure that regardless of the progression that we see in the industry of AI, we're still relevant. And that's the biggest question that I get asked, regardless of what industry it is. They go, how do I stay relevant in my industry with all these AI changes coming down the pipeline?
I feel like this is a conversation that's been going on even longer than since ChatGPT. I know it's super, super prevalent now, but every time there's a new technology that comes out, it's the same thing. It's oh, well, this is going to replace this and this is going to replace this. And it's just another step. But there have been instances where it does kind of replace things. I haven't seen a taxi outside of New York City in I don't know how long, because Lyft and Uber took over. But so sometimes it does actually do that and make the other thing irrelevant. Blockbuster shut down because of Netflix.
Yeah.
But I think with AI, because it's not going against one single thing, it's applicable everywhere. It really can't be something that's going to replace anything. It's like you said, it has to just be integrated.
Well, and that's the thing. There's definitely going to be industries that are literally flipped upside down. You even mentioned taxis and how Uber and Lyft came in and re-engineered that whole industry. Well, I was just in Phoenix, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. And literally they have autonomous taxis, autonomous Ubers in Phoenix.
That's terrifying.
They're literally driverless cars that will pick you up. They're part of the Uber app. You can get, I'm sure they're part of Lyft in Phoenix as well, because they're testing them in several major cities, and Phoenix just happened to be a hub. But I saw these cars as I was coming from the airport to my hotel, and they have all these cameras. They're still I don't know, clunky is really the word that comes to mind. But they're still in, we'll call it a developmental phase. And there's cameras literally on all points of these cars. And I saw so many of them. And initially I thought they were Google cars that were mapping the roads.
Mm,
Why do you have all these Google cars going everywhere that are mapping everything? Is Phoenix not mapped by now? And my human Uber driver was like, no, bro, those are autonomous cars. You can snag one of those and they'll drive you wherever you want to go, or you can go with a human like myself. And I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I'd never seen, and I'm in Dallas. It's not like I live in the boondocks, you
yeah.
know, but we don't have, at least to my knowledge, I have not seen one anywhere in Dallas or Fort Worth.
Honestly, it seems a little bit like dystopic. Like every time I see things like this,
Yeah.
I'm reminded of the movie Wall-E
Yeah. Yeah.
and how that was actually supposed to be a cautionary tale, not something we strive for.
Well, it's funny you say that, because with all of this technology that's coming around, that's what I'm seeing, dude. We're
Mhm.
not paying attention. You know, we're definitely paying attention to the sci-fi movies of the we'll say 70s, 80s, 90s. But we're not paying attention to the moral of a lot of those stories. I mean, if we dial it back, I'm even dating myself here a little bit, but 2001: A
We all
Space.
know you're old.
Yeah, I don't know if that came out in the early 80s or the late 70s.
Which one?
2001: A Space Odyssey. It came out in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was a massive hit. And I mean, it's a classic flick. If you look it up for all you youngsters out there, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it had an AI component that was built into this spaceship, and its name was Hal, and things went kind of awry. But we see that in movie after movie after movie after movie. But then here we are in 2024, and just a couple weeks ago, I saw where you can literally buy an AI powered robot dog with a flamethrower attached to its back for under $10,000. You can buy your own flame throwing pet AI dog for
So
less.
when are we doing the unboxing video? Because I'm
Dude,
sure you
I
bought
want one
it.
so bad. I want so literally. We just need one client to sign up. So if we can get one, if we get one client to volunteer, I promise you, all the proceeds from your podcast launch will go towards the robot dog. Comes in at about $9,400. So come on in. We'll do your show. We'll produce it for 6 months. And in exchange, you'll buy us a robot flame throwing dog. And by
As
us,
the one responsible for the finances over here, I'm going to promise you that's not gonna happen. But great idea.
just call me. LarryRoberts.com. My contact, just call me. We'll work it out. I promise.
Yeah, I'm stepping out of that one.
Yeah.
But no, I also like there was a movie for like the younger people. It was like a DCOM Disney Channel original movie called Smart House, I think.
Okay.
And it was the same thing. They added it was kind of it almost reminds me of this point of like the Alexas because it's like the whole house was wired and there was like a AI basically mom that like was running the house, but she then wanted to become the real mom and kind of took over and trapped him in the house and it was chaotic.
Yeah.
And like we saw it in Marvel movies, the when one of the Avengers, Tony Stark creates an AI that
Yep.
becomes real and a villain. It's like we're seeing so many cautionary tales.
Yeah. But we're not paying attention to any of it.
No.
It's and even on a more relatable level, my house is so integrated that without internet, I'm kind of off the grid. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm completely lost because I can't even watch TV. I can't work because I don't have my computer. I can't turn my lights on and off at my house without internet service because my whole house is integrated into a Hue, which is HUE. It's a system. All my lights are on the Hue system. They run on a timer or they run on an app on my phone. So I can turn them on and off with an app, or they come on at I think 8 a.m. and they go off at 9 p.m. It's just, but without
That's
internet service,
so wasteful
well, why is it wasteful?
because you're not in those rooms all day. Why do you have the lights on?
Well, in all
What
honesty,
about sunlight?
no, ugh, no, I don't like
Mm.
sunlight. But at the same time, um, I mean, if you were to look at my hallway right now, outside, it looks dark out there because all the lights in the house they are on at about 30%. I'm kind of vampire-esque most of the time. I like just enough light to see where I'm going and not bump into things, but I don't want so much light that I'm like, it's too bright. I don't like it. But the point is, we're not here to judge Larry and Larry's light habits. We're
We
here
are.
to talk about how that we're so integrated with technology that it can be, when that technology is not there, it can be overwhelming, or it can be devastating to our brands. It can put a halt to everything we're doing.
Yeah, I think people have been doing a lot of damage to their own brands with AI because it's one of those, like, just because it's there doesn't mean you need to use it. And if you create content with AI and you're not reading it,
Yeah.
you're just putting it out there with your logo on it, that's not gonna end well.
No,
And
and
we've seen it so many times already.
yeah, and one of the biggest stories out there, and I'm
The
sure,
lawyer.
yeah, the lawyer. Most people have probably heard the story, and I know you have because I tell it every time I talk, and
Yeah,
you could probably do most of my talks for me at this
all
stage.
of them.
But there was the lawyer out of New York who did his case briefing on ChatGPT, and I had no idea what that flesh colored shaft was. It just came into the screen. I'm like, what is she? What are you doing, bro? It's just a straw, folks. It's a flesh colored straw. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we may edit that out. Probably
I
not.
hope so.
No, it's pretty funny. I
I
just saw
don't want flesh-colored shaft
covered
on our podcast.
shooting. Like,
We can't lose our clean rating.
what is going on here? But this lawyer did his case briefing in ChatGPT, turned it into the judge without reading it, and it literally had nothing to do with the case. And while he wasn't disbarred, at least the last I'd heard, maybe he may have been by now, but it was national level news, and he was definitely disgraced. And that's something that can easily happen to your brand if you don't use these tools that are out there and use them cautiously. Like Sarah was saying, you have to read every bit of content that you create in a Chat GPT or a Claude or a Gemini or a Microsoft Copilot or a Llama. If we want to go down the Llama route, Meta's got to get in there. Meta, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg's got to get in there with Llama. And I named off 5 chatbots. Those are my top 5 chatbots that are out there. And those are some of the most popular ones that people are using. And they're integrated into a variety of different product suites that we use. I mean, if you look at Microsoft Copilot, it's integrated into the Office suite. So if you open up Word or you open up PowerPoint or Excel, you have that AI companion that's there. It's kind of like, if you're old enough, you remember
Clippy.
you remember Clippy.
I
Clippy
miss Clippy.
Clippy was worthless as boobs on a boar hog, but at the same time, he's pretty funny. So I love that face. That's an amazing, yeah. Boar hogs don't need boobs because boars are dudes, so they don't have a use for them. See, so that's a saying in Texas.
It's not. I live in
No,
Texas.
no, but you're a transplant. You don't count. So you're from New York, so it doesn't resonate. But for real Texans that have been here all their lives, worthless is, well, they say the T word on a boar hog. That's an old school saying that Texans like to use on a regular basis when something is worthless. You see, you don't see.
I don't.
All right, maybe I should have gone down that path. But but we'll edit my boobs on a boar hog out if we edit the flesh colored straw out. So we'll see what gets edited and when. So, but
We'll
anyway,
A/B test it.
we'll AB.
Some of you are going to hear really strange things, and some of you won't.
Which you should always A/B test your content when you put it out there to see what works and what doesn't. And anyways, I don't even know where the heck I was going. But some of these tools, they're worthless if you don't use them properly. Oh, I was talking about Clippy. So
Clippy
was pretty worthless. But some of these co-pilots, Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini, which is integrated into the Google Office suite with Google Docs and Google Sheets. Those are great, man. Those can really help you when you get stuck. From a creative perspective, a lot of times, if you need to write a paragraph, you need to write a chapter of a book, or you need to write some content for a blog or a social media post, those things are great. But at the same time, we have to do our due diligence to make sure that what's going out there is the message that we want to deliver, and it's being delivered in a way that we want to deliver it. So these AI tools, it doesn't really matter which one you're using. They all have a tendency to hallucinate, which takes us back to the lawyer. I mean, it completely did not know the case that the lawyer was asking about, so it just made stuff up. And I'm sure it sounded great, but when the judge read it, he was like, "Por qué?"
I was at a conference and there was a couple of people there that had this whole study that they'd done on ChatGPT, and they were talking about the hallucination. So hallucinating for ChatGPT, it's when ChatGPT just makes things up.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing, there's no proof, no nothing. It's just this, it just made it up. But I heard a lot of people, they even said this at the conference we were at the other day, is ask it for sources
Mhm.
so that you can verify the sources. It hallucinates sources.
Oh, sure.
It
100%.
will create if you say you wanted to learn something about like how to protect your brand, it'll just have like protectyourbrand.com is where we got this from, but it doesn't like it just puts words together that's like that sounds like it could be a source
Yeah.
and it pretends it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It's 100% terrifying, and it's just kind of a lesson that we have to learn, and hopefully we don't learn that firsthand by creating something, citing a source, giving it to a client, and then that client going, "What?" And then it's going, "Oh, my bad."
Yeah, well
So
that kind of happened to me. I when I was putting my book out, I guess the person that was doing the about the author
mhm.
must have used ChatGPT because it I don't know and I don't know where it got its information, but my bio was completely wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like I think it was a book description too. The whole book, like I had a little bit about my past in finance. And the whole point of talking about it was that I got out of it
Right.
and that I'm no longer in finance. And the whole like they wrote the description of my book as basically like this is what life is like in the finance world. I'm like that you just made all of this up.
And it will. It will. Especially if you have a common name. And while it made up stuff for you, if you have a name like Larry Roberts, there, there have been several Larry Robertses that are much more successful than I am. I mean, there's been like a scientist, there was an actor, there was a politician. So when I ask ChatGPT to write about me, I get all kinds of crazy stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, this stuff sounds amazing," but it's not me. So it can be extremely tough. And that just goes back to what we're saying, man. You got to do your due diligence. You have to check your work, and you have to make sure that the content being created is relevant. Um,
What are some of the platforms that you've been using for content for your brand that you do really like? Like which ones? I mean, besides ChatGPT, like are there any ones that you just like are like, wow, this is amazing. Everyone needs to use this.
yeah, I mean, my fallback, and it. I don't want to say that it's becoming my favorite, but it maybe it is going to become. I'm almost to the point where I'm willing to pay for it. It's that good. It's Claude. I love Claude, and
Mm.
it sounds when it gives you content, it's melodic. I mean, it just flows. It just sounds so nice, and it writes so well, and it's just so engaging, and it sounds so human, and it has emotion, and it just feels good. So I will often, and I'm a diehard ChatGPT guy.
Mhm.
I'm huge on persona modeling, and I have several different personas that I use within ChatGPT for my projects, depending on what I'm working on. I love that fact that you can persona model, but at the same time, even without persona modeling and without making any real significant changes, you can go to Claude, and that's CLAUDE.ai, Claude AI, and it does an amazing job of generative content. So a simple prompt can get you some really robust stuff. I love that one. It's great. I mentioned the others, the other three as well. I mentioned Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, and Llama. Those are good, but the top two cat daddies are Chad GPT and Claude. If you use those two, you're going to be able to put out some really amazing stuff.
And are those just like for words?
Claude, yes, just for words.
Okay.
ChatGPT can do images as well. And, they have a video platform, but it hasn't been released to the public yet. But
Mhm.
the video platform, Sora, is the name of the platform. It is insane. Some of the videos that they've created with just some simple 1 to 2 sentence prompts will blow your mind. I'm talking 4K, high definition, crazy, colorful, robust, super crisp, super sharp imagery that is just mind blowing. And they haven't quite found a way to release that to the public in what they consider a a safe
Safe?
screen. Yeah, safe is definitely the word that they're using. So I don't know if it's necessarily to that point yet, but um, yeah, it's super, super cool. So ChatGPT and Claude, ChatGPT will give you images because they've integrated Doll E. If you're familiar with ChatGPT and some of the other platforms that OpenAI, which is the creator of ChatGPT, if you're familiar with some of their offerings, Doll E is their image generation platform, and they've gone so far as to integrate that directly into ChatGPT. So if you have a ChatGPT account, you can ask it to draw an image of something and it will do that. And you don't have to switch between platforms or anything. You have to do literally nothing other than change your prompt to ask for an image, and you can get images back as well.
What is the one I know you've been using or at least playing with one for like video content?
Yeah, again, I mentioned Sora is the video content one that's out
No,
there.
Opus.
Uh, okay, so you're talking about like using AI to cut up your clips.
Yeah.
It doesn't do generative video, but
Okay.
Opus is amazing for taking long form content, finding the highlights, and cutting it up into, we'll call it micro content or reels. Video.ai was another one that we used to use quite a bit, and it's still a leader in the industry. They do a great job. But man, Opus just seems to have that algorithm really dialed in where it just really understands what is relevant and what's not relevant. How it does it, of course, that's proprietary. Don't know the algorithm there, but it does a really good job of identifying the key points within a long piece of video content.
I know one of the biggest struggles that so many of us have when we're running like a brand or a small business is our social media. And you and I are the worst at this. And we're do as we say, not as we do kind of people, because we'll tell you that you need to stay on social and be active, and we are not. But having tools like that, even with ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT to give you basically a content calendar. It makes it a lot easier to manage, like actually creating content if it's going to create it for you. But
Yeah,
read it, read it, read it.
read the
Don't
content.
just post it, read it.
Yeah, 100%, man. But there's so many tools that are out there, and it kind of goes back to when we were starting the conversation of we are in the middle of a revolution, a technology revolution, an AI revolution that we haven't seen anything like this since, honestly, I think the internet. I mean, this is at the level of the internet. And for those of you that were old enough to be around when the internet broke, there were a lot of people saying it was going to be a fad, that it wasn't going to last, that it wasn't going to have any impact, that we'll
I'm
see.
still not fully sold on it. I think
Yeah,
it's been
yeah,
it's
well,
yeah.
yeah, I use it from time to time. But we're seeing the same thing with AI. But I think we're actually kind of getting over that hump where people go, "Holy shnikes,
Mhm.
this stuff is here, and now it's going to put me out of my job. It's going to change the way my children learn in school. It's going to change the way that we do our everyday activities." And it is. But the way we have to make sure that we're ready for that change is that we have to be aware of what's out there and at least have a high level understanding of how it works, because you are going to be involved in AI. You are going to be impacted by AI to a certain degree, and the level of that degree really is up to you. You know, what do you want to do? What are the steps you want to take to make sure that you are AI proof going forward? And one of the things that I want to help do there, because people they don't have those answers. I think we mentioned it at the start of the episode. I'm starting a new podcast. It's going to be out in about 2 weeks. It's called AI Proof, and we're going to go over how you can take the steps necessary to AI proof your house, AI proof your family, AI proof your career, AI proof your education, your children's education, and AI proof literally your future. So we want to take a different perspective on this AI
Mhm.
revolution that we're all experiencing and figure out how we can leverage it to our advantage. Because, in all honesty, if you look back at any of these companies that are saying they're building AI, ethics always comes to the forefront of the discussion. They want to make sure they're developing these in an ethical manner, an accessible manner that's going to be accessible to everyone. And that's a huge concern. How do we bridge that digital divide? Because there are certain people that may not be in as advantageous positions as others and may not have access to some of this technology. And it's scary to think that they're going to be left behind just because they don't have access to this technology. So we want to make sure that we're AI proofing everyone. And as branded, we want to make sure we help you AI proof your brand, your business, and everything revolving around that. So this was a pretty high level conversation.
I
Uh,
think One of the things that I feel like if we're going to talk about AI proofing, and I don't want to spoil your podcast
Yeah.
by bringing this in, but the thing that is going to be the most important across the board when it comes to setting yourself apart from AI and from that technology does not have emotional intelligence.
Yeah. 100%.
ChatGPT is never going to have a full spectrum of human emotion, and you do. And AI is there to do this, like the simple things, the things that are like calculations and the things that you don't need emotion to do, the things that are purely objective. But you need to have that emotional intelligence to be able to connect with people, to be able to connect with your audience, connect with your consumer, connect with your employees, whatever it is that you're doing. That human connection is becoming more important than ever
Sure.
because it's the one thing that ChatGPT cannot recreate. And actually was just having this conversation this morning because like when I put my book out, it's about storytelling. And storytelling is such a hot topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of it is that we're realizing that all the information is available to us. The only thing that makes us different is the stories that we tell surrounding that information.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching Pat Flynn this morning, literally this morning, right about 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning, my typical ritual when I wake up and start my first monster. And he was talking about how course creation is no longer at the forefront of digital entrepreneurship. You know, if you dial it back 3, 4 years ago, being a course creator, being on Udemy or having your own education platform, that was the key to making money online. But there's so much information out there now that people aren't willing to pay for it because it's out there and it's out there for free. We just got to kind of do our homework. And even if the information's not there, now we have AI that will create the information for us. I mean, you could literally build a course on anything you want in about 30 minutes. You could literally have an outline. You could have the video descriptions. You could have everything. You could have the scripts. You could have everything in about 30 minutes. And as a former course creator, that's that'll put a dent in your business plan quick. So
I mean, think about how fast you wrote a book.
Oh, exactly. Well, and to reinforce your point, you know, yeah, I wrote the book in a couple of weeks, but guess what? I wrote what chapter?
Chapter 3.
Why?
Because it's your stories.
Boom. So it couldn't write my story. It couldn't write the story of the red hat and where the red hat came from because it doesn't know. That's the human component. And it's the same thing in everything that we're doing. So make sure you have that human component. Keep that human component in your content, in your business, in your brand, and you'll continue to flourish even throughout this entire AI revolution.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you found some value in this episode. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button so we can continue to bring you these episodes each and every week. And with that, I'm Larry AI Roberts.
I am Sarah, not that Losi. AI Roberts?
I made it up. I don't know.
Well, Trouble is my middle name.
Oh, there you go. Rawr. Trouble with that flesh-colored straw that you had
Oh,
earlier.
God. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.